Hello everyone. Once again, my name is John Kayode Abisi and call me John K. So on this today, I want to speak to us about a new initiative I'm taking, and I call this AWS Network. So I'm building like 5 network security portfolio project that we take into account what is required or what a day-to-day job of a cloud security engineer should look like. That shows that this project kind of build what is expected of a cloud security engineer or so the first thing I want today is to do, the first project I want to take on is what I call a multi-account network of fabric. So in this particular demonstration of portfolio project, I will show us how to set up a multi-account, using AWS Organization, how to create OUs, how to invite account into it, and after that, then I will continue to build on it, other service and solution. So here we are. So here I already have AWS organization in my account. But if you don't have, it's just for you to enable it and enable all the services. Just enable all the services. And the first thing you want to do, so immediately you do that, the root account will be created. This is my root account here. And the other thing you need to do to create organizational unit. If you look at it, I've closed out some organizational unit here. And here I have infrastructure, I have new security, I have new workload. Now, how do we create? The first thing I want to show is how do you create a new organization? So, or OU. So you click on the root account and you say action. And when you say create, you can say infrastructure, or let me say just say infra, and just say create. We're good that we already have that one here. So you can create I've created infrastructure, new security, and new workload. So that is how to create an organizational unit. And if you look at it here, so you see that the source is empty. So the next thing we need to do is to create accounts. So for instance here, we have to bring in some AWS, email for AWS account. So the next thing we need to do right now is to create AWS account. You can invite existing AWS account, but here I want to add a new account. For instance, if you want to invite AWS account, so here what we want to do is to invite, is to create. So here you can do a new invitation, if you know the account details. But what I want to do this morning is to create a new one. So I want to create an AWS account called network account, and okay, sorry. So that is email address, and I will call it network. I will say organizational account access, that should be left alone, and I will say create. So this create, and I want to create another one called let me call these production, and I can do prod here, leave that like that, or create that, and let me create another one I call development, and I can call that one dev. I will say create. So now if you look at it, we have all these accounts. Then what do we do next? So if you look at here, you can see my production account I just created the network account and development. So for instance, we like to move the network account to what I call a factor OU. So when I click on it, what I will do is to go to action and say move. So and I will check this. I will say move AWS. So the next thing I want to do to move production to new workload. So I'll say move a new workload as well. Maybe I could have been able to do it together, development to a new workload. Now if you look at it, if you check infrastructure here, see network, you check new workload, see production develop. So this is how to create a organizational unit, organization AWS, then organizational unit, then create new AWS and move them to organization. So if you look at what we have here is it helps me to organize my account, and that is just the first level of benefit. There are other benefits that will be discussed today. So the next thing to do is if you go to policies here, you just want to create service control policy. So because one of the major, I think the most important thing you will benefit from running an AWS organization and having organizational unit, multiple accounts being managed centrally is when you are able to deploy policy across, from single point of pain, and it affects all other OUs and AWS. Now, service control policy, SCP, are guardrails applied to, at AWS organizational level. Even if a developer, has an administrator's access in the account, SCP can block specific actions. They apply to all users and roles in the account, including root. So this is one of the most important things you have to note. So here I want to create one. So I have some already here, but what I want to do is to create service control policy that will prevent tampering or modifying CloudTrail. So when I go there, I will just say, I will put the name like, what can I give the name? Let me say deny CloudTrail modification. Deny modify. So that is that, and the name is very descriptive itself. So here I can just do. I have a policy here. If you look at the policy, it says stop logging. It denies anybody from stopping logging from deleting trace and even updating trace. So that is that. I can even use this name as a description, and here I can go ahead and say create. There. So I think I have an extra curly brace there. So now it's good. So we can see that this particular policy is basically preventing modification of our CloudTrail. So if I say create now you can see that that policy created. Now if I select that policy, I can say attach, and I can attach it to the root. You can see that immediately I say attach, you can see that it applies to all the OUs. So if it applies to all the OUs, that shows that it applies to the AWS account within that OU. So this is how to create policy at root level, at AWS organization level, and this is how to attach it to a particular organizational unit or the root where it be applicable or applied across all other accounts. So I want to create another policy, and that policy is to deny S3 without TLS. So I can say deny S3 bucket without TLS. So what this will do is that any S3 bucket that doesn't have TLS encryption enabled, that policy we deny it from being created. So if you look at it here, you can see deny is S3 asterisk, anything after that. So I can create this, and so you can attach it. One of the things I want us to look at is the fact that we can actually attach maybe, let me see, infrastructure alone. That's okay, attach to infrastructure alone. Attach. So if you look at it here now, if you go back, it's there. I did not put descriptions there. The last day I did change, go back to policy, then you can have more information. So this is how to create policy. And I think we've created like 2 policies, and they are good. So move to the next level. So moving forward, the next thing I want to do to create bucket. So I'm creating a bucket called just want to use an organizational name, my management. So I will use this, going to ACL disabled. Make sure I will block all public access AWS, that is to this S3 bucket, and I will enable block. So the next thing I will do is to use Amazon's S3 managed keys. I don't have my own KMS. So then the next thing I do is click create. So I'm creating this bucket. The reason why I'm creating bucket is because I want an S3 bucket that we receive log from every account. This bucket receives logs from every account. Its policy must explicitly allow CloudTrail to write. So I'm going to attach policy to these S3 bucket. But what I want to achieve with this bucket is to make sure that accounts can write their logs into this bucket. Okay, so the next thing on the list is to attach a policy to this particular bucket S3. Now, the reason why this is so is because we need to capture CloudTrails capture CloudTrails that are created. So if I want to do that, I will just go to my permission. I'm on my page right now. Remember when we created this? I'll go to permission, and I'll go down there. I will say, okay, policy bucket. I will edit, and I have a policy that I want to look at. This policy, it says allow CloudTrail put object by these Amazon's AWS CloudTrail service. So it allows for put. It allows for put object on that S3 bucket, and this is the name of the S3 bucket. Also the name of the S3 bucket here. So here is going to deny, enforce HTTP only. So deny. So if anything is outside of that, secure is not using the secure transport layer. So that shows that it's not using TLS. So and if any traffic is coming from TLS, it's going to deny. So this is my policy, and what I need to do is to save changes. We have some errors. Fix that. So I think the error is here. This trailing asterisk shouldn't be there. After removing that, the same here. So I corrected it. I think I have some trailing stuff. I did not know. So if you look at this particular policy, here is this is one action here, get bucket ACL, and we can see that it's actually allowing for this particular service. And another one is allow CloudTrail put object, it's also allowing for this service on the same resources. And if you look at it here, it's denying HTTPS on these resources. So that is what it's doing. That shows that this policy doesn't allow that traffic or data being sent into this S3 bucket encrypted, no encryption, but it must have the right permission to put or to retrieve information from that. So you can just say save, and that is how to. So let's go to after the S3 bucket is created, the policy is attached, the next thing we want to do is to come to tray. Remember that the reason why we created the S3 bucket and we created those policies to apply to tray is to set condition and how we want our CloudTrail to behave and where it is stored. Now that is done. Now when I come to tray, as CloudTrail, you can just go to search and put your CloudTrail there, and you come to the dashboard, and you say you click create tray here. I can just put OBT wide tray. So I have to say enable for all account in my organization, and I have to use an existing S3 bucket. Remember, we have an S3 bucket that we created. So if the name should be the name of the S3 bucket, one sec. Okay, the name of my S3 bucket is OBT. Okay, so the name of my S3 bucket is this. I don't want to browse. So then another thing here is that this is encrypted. The tray here is encrypted, but I will rather use I will use a customer managed, and I will say to create a new one. So I call it OBT KMS. Then file validation, I want it to be enabled. File validation to be enabled. Then CloudWatch should be enabled. Yes, so CloudWatch should be enabled. So now you want to allow it to create new log groups, because that is the only way through which it store the logs. So because we don't have existing log file, then I just have to allow it to create a new one. And if you look at the convention, you can see how it's doing that. So these are the things that are most important here. After all these things are done, then we can enable CloudWatch event to be logged here. So when we say role name, so okay, cool. So now I can try and say, okay, next. Okay, role names. Okay, good. So role name, I was looking for that too. So role name, I can just say so there is no existing role. Okay, new role. I can just say CloudTrail. CloudTrail, so I can try to create next. And another important thing here is management event. So what kind of event do you want to capture? Is it a data event, insight event? Is it network activity event? So these are the event one. So we have management event, we have a data event, insight, and network. So then the other thing you want to make sure you included here is not just only you have to include read and write. So these are very important. You can say next. Then with this, now I think everything is good. Then we can go ahead. So if you look at what we have done here, is that we have created an organization, AWS Organization. We have created OUs. We have created AWS accounts. Now in that account, we've deployed a policy at the root level, 2 or 3 points. Then the other thing we want to do is to make sure that we are aware of what is going on. That's why there is something that is logging every activity that's going on within our organization. So that is why we have to enable CloudTrail. CloudTrail can only be enabled when there is storage to keep those trade that is capturing. That's why we have to create S3 bucket. Now S3 bucket has to be created in such a way and given the right permission so that it can store event from CloudTrail. So now that is done, then we now create the tray itself. We now say, okay, this tray to capture event, trace from this particular organization, and these are the kind of things we want alongside the configuration that we want to be applied to it. So with that, we have seen that at that point we have achieved all these things, and we'll move to the next phase. So the next thing now is to create a shared service VPC, to create shared service VPC in the network account. Remember that before now we created the network account, that is AWS account within the organizational unit. So what I've done is that when that was created, I just created with the email address. So I went to my email, activated the account, make sure that everything is good. Now, when you come to that account, now I am not creating VPC account in management account, which was what I used to create the organizational unit, and bring all the AWS account under that particular OU or that particular route. Now, but one of the AWS account I created was the one for network. So I log in as the network. Now, if you can look at it here under this place at the top right corner, you can see network, and you can see the root account. That is one that ends with 072. So after that, you can go to services and just type VPC. So you should have VPC here. Now, this is a shared VPC service that you want to create. So what I need to do is if you click on your VPC here, I think it's then you go to create VPC. Then I want a VPC with more, and I want to give it a name like shared service. So I can give it a shared services. Okay. Then this IP block is good enough for me. Then no IPC version 6, that is good. Tenancy should be default. Hey, now these are the things to pay attention. So in my number of availability zone, I just want 2, and the number of public subnet, I want 2. Number of private subnet, I want 2 as well. So those are good. Now under these NAT gateway, I want a NAT gateway here, and I want a zone 1. And when that is done, I want 1 in availability zone, not 1 per availability zone. So I want 1 in availability zone. And there's nothing wrong for enabling S3 bucket gateway. Then we enable DNS host name and DNS resolution. And here after this, now I can say, okay, create a VPC. So it might take some time before VPC got created, but that is how to create a VPC. And now, if you look at one thing I wanted to notice is that when we're creating that VPC, VPC and more option, wizard creates subnet, route table, internet gateway, and NAT in one go. So understand what it creates is very important. That when you choose the option of create more, it helps you to create other network tools that that can be associated are very useful to that. So I'll pause and I'll come back when this is complete. It might take some time. So if you look at it now, the VPC is created successfully, and yeah, so we have that. So if we go to VPC now, we have sorry, your VPCs. So you will see that we should have more VPCs here apart from the default one. Okay, good. So we have shared VPC, and you can see the VPC ID block from public access. So one of the things I want to do is to attach a transit gateway manually. So if I go to my VPC here, if I click, I can go to subnet. Okay, let me say subnet, and say create a subnet. So what kind of subnet do I want to create? I want to create a subnet under the shared VPC, and I can call it because this subnet, I can call it shared transit gateway. Transit gateway maybe A. So because this subnet is meant for transit gateway alone, it is recommended that you should have a dedicated subnet for transit gateway. So then the availability zone, I'll take central. I'm looking for a specific one, so maybe I could just put this one in east, yes, east one, and yeah, and I can just look at the block. The IP block is good for me, and okay, the CIDR block should be 28, should be 10, 20, 28. So we use 10.0.0.8. Yeah, so that is that, and yeah, so those are the things that I'll give it there. That should give us like 14 usable IP address, and I should be able to say add new subnet or create new subnet, add new subnet here, and I should now do I will do shared GW maybe, and the availability zone, maybe I should think B. I did A this time around 10.0.20.16/20. So of that, and after this I can now say create. So now if you look at it now, I have I have two subnet for this transit gateway, and I can now say create address 10.10. Okay, so I should say create conflict. So let me take a look at it. So the subnet for transit gateway are successfully created. So if you go back to our subnet now, you'll be able to see the shared, two in public, two in private. Was the first 4 we created for the VPC, but these they are for the transit gateway that needs to be created manually and independently. So we'll move forward from there. So now we have like subnet that are available for. So now that we have created the transit gateway, subnet and everything, the other thing I want to tell us is the need for us to clean up or to lock down our security group. So if you're in your VPC page, you can go to your security group, and here you can see that if you look at these inbound rule, it allows all traffic by CIS standard. This shouldn't be, so you can just come here and do edit and say, okay, what you say, you can delete it and save. Then you do the same thing for outbound, and you can delete and save. So this is very important for security purposes, that because that particular default rules or security group allows traffic to come in, all traffic to get into that security group and get out. So when you can just do that, that saves the day. So now folks, so the next thing I want to do is to create a transit gateway, transit gateway. Now remember that transit gateway is the network hub. That shows that if you want VPCs to be able to communicate, you use a transit gateway to to like hub them together. It's like a hub, a router through that all other VPC kind of connect to. So the first thing I will do here, if you can see my screen, is that I will go down here. There is a transit gateway here under your VPC. So you say create transit gateway, and here I can do hub. I can call it hub, gateway, and I have some description I can just put here. So the ASN 64512. These side autonomous system number is used to connect maybe to BGP or another VPN. So, but I will talk about that later. So my job here is to get this created first. So yes, I will allow for DNS support. I will allow for VPN MP support because some other things I will do will require that. But default table association, I'm going to disable that, and route propagation, I'm going to disable that. Auto accept share attachment too, I will not enable it. So I'll move forward and okay, good. So now from here I can just say create a transit. So transit gateway takes some time to look at it for it to to come up. So while it's pending, I will pause and I will get back to it. So folks, I want to create. So if you go back to your transit table, transit gateways, so it's created now. And if you get back to transit, so we have to create a route table right now. That is transit gateway route table. So I have two already here. I can just go here and say I want a prod route table, and I will associate it with our just created transit gateway. Then I will create that. Then I can go ahead and create second one, dev route table, and I can still associate it. Now you should know by now the essence of this. That shows that if we have a dev VPC, a prod VPC, a let me say VPN, VPC, or any other VPC. Now, what we are trying to do here is that all of them can get connected to this transit gateway, and the routing tables can specify how communications are routed or are driven. So that is the very essence of creating a transit gateway and creating route tables around it, is to show the direction and the location through which the routing tables should route traffic. So we move to attaching the VPC we created before to the transit gateway we just created. So if you look at our transit gateway here, I just want to refresh our memory. This is it. Here, for us to attach that, we can do what we call a transit gateway attachment. So you can create attachment here, then you give it a name, shared services attachment. Then we look at the gateway we created, which is hub gateway. And the kind of attachment we want to do here is VPC. It's not VP. It's not VPN. We can see we have a VPN, we have PN connection, we have side to side, but for here is and we'll leave all those things there. And here we choose my VPC. So these are, I have two VPC here, so I will choose the one that I want to to attach to this transit gateway. And here you have to be very careful. Check the subnet. The subnet that we created for this transit gateway is what I choose here for both subnet. And now I can say create. It takes time for transit gateway sometimes to get propagated, properly. So yeah, you can say it's taking some time, but I will come back to that, and I will proceed. So now I want to associate the attachment to a routing table. So for instance, this is my routing gateway. Then this is transit gateway routing table. The routing table I create for this, the other time was this. I shared the service routing table. So I will just click on this, and now I will create an association. So what I want to do here now is to create an association. So I will say create association. Now I'm creating, this routing table, I'm associating it with this attachment. So this is the attachment that I created, and I will just say create association. Now what does this do is that it has associated, it's to help me associate and propagate information between the transit gateway and the VPC. So now the next thing I want to do is to so if we look at where's the association. So now I can go to this same shared route table. Then when you look at propagation here, so because one thing I have to do is to associate. The first thing is to create an association. The second thing is to propagate. So I can propagate here, create propagation, and say who am I propagating with, and select that propagation. Shared services attachment. You can see the attachment that I created. I will go ahead and say create. So the other thing is that I will do the same thing for development. I'll go to propagation. I will say create propagation. Then I will do that. Then I'll go to production. Then I will do propagation, and I will create another one, and I will attach to that share this thing. Now, why am I doing this? The reason why I'm doing this is to make sure there is a navigation between these route tables. You understand my point now? Like the dev route table, the production route table, the shared services route table. What I'm doing is I'm enabling a navigation between all of them. So that is what I'm doing there. So now I did that. So this means that both production and dev will automatically lane the shared services CIDR block. So the shared services now, they will lane the navigation system, the CIDR block, and they'll be able to communicate over the network. So that is why